So the question remains, is there no taxes on overtime, or will there be no taxes on overtime as well as tips? Well, here's what you need to know about the budget bill, and this comes directly from Forbes. So they asked, was Medicaid cut? And I'll let you know why they asked that. It says, will tips be taxed? What to know about the budget bill. So here's the top line. The House narrowly approved a Republican budget plan Tuesday that includes massive tax cuts and additional border wall funding that could be paid for in part with controversial cuts to Medicaid spending through the specific details of the spending plan are in flux. Now, should it come from Medicaid spending? I highly doubt it. But if you're getting a big saving from the things that Doge is discovering with false funds and different things going to different places, that's a whole nother conversation. But let's keep going. So here are the key facts that we're going to get from this so you can understand what the bill is about right now and how it aligns with the no tax on overtime and tips. So the House approved the budget in a 217 to 215 vote. So only won by two Tuesday night, largely along with party lines. And basically, the Republicans sided with the Democrat against the revolution. So basically, it was only one Republican that sided with the Democrats. All other Republicans voted for it. All Democrats voted against it. So the Democrats wanted people to be taxed on their overtime, taxed on their tips. What are your thoughts? You let me know that below. But it was one Republican who wanted them to be taxed on the tips as well. But apparently the Republicans won. So the plan calls for a 4 trillion in tax cuts over the next decade, 2 trillion in cuts to government programs, 3 billion for border security and defense spending, and 4 trillion debt limit increase. So that's where the trillions are supposed to be coming from. So that's why they asked, did Medicaid just get hurt by this? Well, they've been saving a lot of money or discovering a lot of money that's been misappropriated. So maybe the funds should come from that versus Medicaid. But we'll see how it all plays out. So the plan is merely a framework that tasks the relevant House committees with drafting spending plans for the areas of government they oversee in accordance with the top line figure approved Tuesday. The Senate must approve the plan, and several Republican senators have indicated they want to see modifications, which would send the bill back to the House. Now, there's still some things that have to be done in order for it to officially kick in and say whether or not there will be taxes on tips, there will be taxes on overtime or not. So there's still some things that have to take place in order for that to go in full effect. And there are some Republicans who want to see some modifications to the bill. So we'll see how it all plays out. But here's what could happen with Medicaid. The spending plan doesn't explicitly mention Medicaid, but calls for the House Energy and Commerce Committee to cut $880 billion from programs it oversees over the next decade, which can't be achieved without cutting Medicaid. So they're looking at the department that it calls for the cuts to come from, and they're like, hold on, you can't do this without cutting Medicaid, even if the committee cuts all other programs down to zero. So they're saying it has to be dispersed in some way, and Medicaid could fall into that combination of things being cut. Now, if you look at some of the things that Doge is doing and things that they're discovering, there are some funds that was going to Medicaid and people were being paid that shouldn't have, in a way that could create where those funds could come from. But just cutting it from those who are actually utilizing the Medicaid, I'm not supportive of, but I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. That's why I'm here, just in case it affects you in any way, shape, form, fashion. So even if the committee cuts all programs down to zero, it seems like they will have to cut Medicaid. Some Republicans, however, have argued Medicaid spending can be reduced by rooting out waste and fraud they say exist in the program. Like I was talking about, the waste and the fraud. While Trump has vowed there will be no cuts to Medicaid under his administration, the House Ways and Means Committee, for example, suggests up to $35 billion in savings could be found by barring non-citizens from federal health program, because a lot of non-citizens do tap into our Medicaid programs. It's crazy. They actually get more funding in certain areas provided by the government than actual people who were born, live here, and their family was here for many, many, many years. If you look at those numbers, it's staggering how they're incentivized more than the people who reside here It's crazy. But the House Ways and Means Committee, for example, suggests up to $35 billion in savings could be found just by barring non-citizens from federal health care programs, including advanced premium tax credits and Medicaid. Republicans have also floated new work requirements that could disqualify some existing Medicaid recipients. So this is something you want to, get an understanding of. They also are wondering if SNAP would be cut, which is Supplemental Assistance Nutrition Program for those who may receive SNAP that provides certain food, etc. So that could be a topic of discussion. And what does the plan say about debt limit? Well, what it does is it instructs House Ways and Means Committee to increase the debt limit by $4 trillion from $36.1 trillion to $40.1 trillion. The federal government reaches its borrowing threshold in January, triggering the Treasury Department to take extraordinary measures or a series of accounting maneuvers to continue paying its bills, which former Treasury Secretary Janet warned would expire mid-March. So the budget would actually increase the debt more than current Congressional Budget Office projection, according to the nonpartisan. So they want to be able to borrow more by increasing the threshold, and we'll see how that plays out. But usually when they do that, some kind of way inflation happens even more. So even with a debt limit increase, the federal government would surpass its borrowing limit sometime late next year if they don't act fast. So what tax cuts could be included? And this is where it gets interesting. So the $4 trillion in tax cuts the spending plan calls for are contingent on $2 trillion in program cuts. If lawmakers are unable to achieve the $2 trillion in program cuts, the tax cuts would be reduced by the leftover amount. The majority of the tax cuts will come from an extension of the 2017 tax law, which could or will cost about $4 trillion over the next decade, separate from the extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act. So Republicans will be tasked with drafting budget parameters to achieve the president's goal to eliminate taxes on tips, Social Security, and overtime. So this is where that comes in at. This is what could happen with those tax cuts. So that's why people are celebrating and saying, hey, there's going to be no taxes on overtime. Very well could be. I'm rooting for it. It could be no income tax. It could be no taxes on tips. So it could be no taxes on Social Security. All of those, I think, are beneficial to the American people. And I think is worthy of a discussion, worthy of a maneuver, not even just a discussion, worthy of emphasizing. Why? Because a person who is willing to work overtime, let's hit on the overtime, a person who's willing to work overtime is a person who's contributing to the economy on multiple levels. Number one, you're putting in work so you can be the person that's taking care of your household without depending on any entity. You're doing for self. You're trying to do whatever you can in order to generate more revenue so you can do and contribute more so to your household. So you're taking matters into your own hands, saving yourself. That's rewarding, number one. The second thing is they're contributing to the company. So depending on the company, that company could be a local company that's, a small business basically, or it could be a big Fortune 500, 150 company. And now not only are they contributing to the company, they're contributing to the economy because that company might be publicly traded. And if a person is putting in extra work, then it could be a benefit to the company in some way, shape, form, fashion. And it has a trickle down benefit. But it's somebody who's doing what they have to do. And if everybody did what they had to do in certain areas, then it makes the world more productive. It makes America more productive. So I can see them wanting to let them keep more of their money because they are not only pulling their weight, they're pulling others' weight by doing overtime. Let me know what your thoughts are below. But it's nothing set in stone. The key is the tax could include these opportunities to eliminate taxes on tips, Social Security, and overtime. So let's see how it plays out. Let's see what happens. The funds also include certain things as it relates to border funding and things of that nature. But I'm interested to see how it plays out because I believe that a person shouldn't be overtaxed on overtime, tips, and definitely Social Security. That's all I got. Mr. Smith signing out. As it relates to taxes, if you need any assistance with taking full control of your tax liability by legally minimizing your taxes, maximizing your refund, link in the description. Salute.